morning. Good morning. I am back. I am back with my co-host for Table Talk. We have a lot to talk about this morning, so we'll just get started. Introduce yourselves, guys.
Good morning. My name is Darnell McLaurin. I'm a public servant as well as a union delegate, and I'd like to say good morning to my son, Miles.
Miles.
What's happening, Miles? I'm Daryl Buchanan, public servant and former director of My Brother's Keeper for the state of Michigan.
And Jerome Buffington, Business Development Manager for VNA, Visiting Nurses Association. And I'd like to say happy belated birthday to my daughter, Logan.
Oh, man.
Logan
Happy
has so much
belated birthday.
personality. Happy birthday, Logan. She just, she looks just like you.
She is precious.
Yeah.
I saw the picture.
Golly.
I'm glad because I haven't got back to test yet, so
Oh.
that's reassuring.
You are, I'm telling Carrie. I'm telling Carrie.
You
I'm
know
tell-
this is live, right?
Yes, we are live. We are live. We have a lot to talk about this morning. Shortly, we're going to get into the Colin Kaepernick thing of this week, and also we're going to be dealing with what were we just talking about?
Donald Trump,
45.
your buddy.
Oh,
Him?
him. Oh goodness, we're dealing with him, and then we're going to
Lord,
get to
45.
Jasper Williams, and we're going to be talking about some of the same topic that Colette was talking about by Julian Malvo. She wrote a great commentary. Say, where were the black men? Why didn't they stand up when Jasper Williams was talking about the fact that a black woman could not raise black sons, which is such a tale, man. But anyway,
That's
let's
personal.
kind of get started. I don't know where the root of that came from, but anyway, we're going to talk. Trump had what I would say was a bad week, but apparently I don't know if it ended up that bad. But he tried to say anonymous last night and couldn't say anonymous. Did you see that?
Ominous.
Anonymous and everything.
It's
Talking
our
about
stable genius.
yeah.
I would really love to see Donald Trump on Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? I really want to know if he could get past the first question.
He would win because the first thing he would say is, "You know, I'm smarter than a fifth grader, right? You know that, right?"
No. I don't think he could get past the first question.
Right. Well, this week, the book, well, it'll be out next week, but the book is Fear, and it's about the Trump White House, and it was written by not Bernstein, but
Woodward. Yeah,
Bob Woodward, who also wrote All the President's Men. He's written something on all the presidents. In fact, he and Bernstein's columns and news reporting really brought down the
Yeah, he's part of
Nixon
Watergate.
and part of Watergate. They went and researched. So he's been very credible. And he was talking about how in the White House people call Trump idiots. Also, how sometimes he'd want to start wars and things like that, just like a kid.
Put a hit out on Assad. That was crazy.
Yeah, he wanted to put a hit out.
I mean, he truly acts like a mob boss, and not, and not even a smart mob boss, because smart mob bosses aren't even that public with their, with their criminality. This guy is just out front with, how criminal and how childish really he is. I mean, I've said this before. Growing up in the era that I did, I grew up around a lot of thugs, but thugs didn't say I'm a thug.
Right.
Okay, they hid that. That's something that you just didn't see. So the real thugs weren't the guys telling you that they're a thug. And when young people would come in front of us, student hearings, and they would talk about they a thug, I'd look at them and say, "Man, you ain't no thug, because you ain't as thuggish as me, and I know that."
Right.
But-
Well, I found something interesting in that article when basically they said he lacked credibility because there's nothing that he won't say or do, nothing that he finds to be of sacredness.
Right.
Basically, he would lie about anything.
Well,
that's
they say
evident
he's
inferring.
amoral. He
Yeah.
doesn't have that affect.
No.
You know what I think what's happening is a lot of the left is starting to see, what we've been seeing all along, right?
A lot of the right, you mean?
Yeah, the right. I'm sorry. So they starting to see what we've known all along. But how do you continue to hold this united front with all this stuff going on in the background? And I think that's where the biggest issue is. There's a fight in the background where they like, listen, we got to get rid of this guy, but we can't get rid of this guy. We got to save face somehow. We got to shore him up. We got to hold him
those
up.
votes.
Right, but the more that he wins these small battles, he go on to something bigger and better. Idiotic speaking, and they are continually have to defend him.
I mean, but the fallacy of all of it is that he did not win the popular vote, okay? And even in the states, the major states, Michigan, Ohio, and Wisconsin, they're now starting to see that all the things that he said to them were just outright lies. And, I'm going to, your jobs are going to stay here. So you look at Carrier.
I'm gonna bring back coal.
You look at Carrier.
Yeah, coal. Well, look
Might well
at
bring back
Harley
Blacksmith.
Davidson.
and the 8-track.
Harley
You can bring back the
Davidson.
8-track too.
Right.
Harley Davidson, right?
Right.
He said that, but here's the other thing that's part of the conflict: the fact that they say the economy is good and so forth.
But with that, I look at that as this is what Obama was doing, and now it's coming into fruition.
Right.
I don't believe in a year and a half this man can sit up there and basically turn everything
didn't. He
around.
hasn't.
It was already in
He
motion.
hasn't.
Everything was
Right.
already turning that way, and he's taking credit for it.
What he is doing is he's going to put a halt to, all of this momentum that the economy has built up from the Obama era.
Right.
And so, a lot of, that tax cut, that's going to come back and haunt
That
us
is
big
getting
time.
ready to
Of course.
haunt me
Okay.
if I don't get more money taken out of my
Gas
pension.
is higher
Right.
now.
Yeah,
Right.
gas is
And the small business are really going to hurt. Increasing the tariff is going to really hurt the small business. A lot of their products they purchase from overseas, obviously, but now they can't afford them. So what happens when you have no products to sell?
And that's in the states that I was mentioning before. They're the ones that are being hit by these tariffs, along with the tax cuts, and then even with the tax
The
cuts,
auto industry is being
big time,
hit.
Right.
big time. And then you're alienating Canada, because we have so much manufacturing that goes back and forth between us and Canada especially in the automobile industry.
Right.
So if you're going to, alienate them and put higher tariffs on them, you're crippling the auto industry. So, I mean, but then the tax cuts, and they talked about how, they just believe in this trickle-down economics, that it's going to work. And
never
all
works.
these
It never
corporations have
works.
done is buy back their own stock. They bought back their own stock with the tax relief that they got, and all that does is increase their stock price.
Right.
That has nothing to do with the average worker.
And trickle down is a theory that actually works in theory, but that's if it trickles. Well, so what happens is if I'm big business and I get a tax break, and I'm gonna tell you though that it's gonna allow me to hire more people and put more people to work, when in actuality that's just gonna increase my pockets. You know what I'm saying? So trickle down is a theory.
Oh, it's
Because you
trickling
can't
down.
regulate
work.
what those people do with the money that they save.
Exactly.
The theory is that they're gonna take that money, they're gonna hire more people, put more people back to work. Well, no, what happens is they end up having the same people do more for less and put that money in their pocket.
Exactly.
So trickle down basically trickles you down to being poor.
Well, it is trickling down, but have you got a whiff of it? Are you smelling what that is?
Yeah, not
'Cause
yet.
that's we ain't getting the economics. Where's the $4,000 increase that workers were supposed to get in their paychecks? That hasn't come to fruition. So
And if everything is costing more and you're getting more money, it's like you're breaking even anyway. So it's not really like you're winning any kind of way.
Exactly.
it's the cost of living. Everything is going up, and then the wages. And wages have not kept up with the cost of living in the past 40 years.
Of
Right.
course.
Well, what about, will inflation happen? Inflation.
Inflation always happens, and he makes a good point about the cost of living or the minimum wage, for example. Back when we were young men working in high school, minimum wage was still below $10.
Right.
Well, 40 years later, it's still below $10.
Yeah.
So inflation, look at it, how much the vehicle cost back in the late 70s, early 80s versus how much a vehicle costs now. So inflation has really grown, but the minimum wage hasn't.
And then, I mean, you think about just a loaf of bread, was 25 cents
Well,
when we were growing up, and now
when I was young. Loaf of bread was 25 cents, but my minimum wage when I started working as a teenager was $1.15 an hour, and like I said,
I
I
worked
thought
for
I was cooking with gas. I said $1.15.
Plus tips.
Yeah.
Now-
Well, nobody is
Let's
saying 8:15. Yeah,
I
no,
know.
not at all.
But-
Absolutely.
I'll tell you what that article did do. It made me happy to see that some people in his administration were finally starting to rebel against him, and that some people were willing to talk, even though it was anonymous. That they were willing to say, "This is ridiculous. This man is crazy."
Well,
But do you think, I'm sorry, but do you think that they would be so willing to talk or be open if they knew that they wasn't already on the chopping block? I mean, he's firing guys left and right, right? So there's no loyalty. There's no reason to be loyal. You
But-
could still be fired.
I look at it like this. He can fire you, and he's probably had the most turnaround of any president within this time period. But who else does he get to come in and work in those? I mean, if you know that you have to work in this type of environment where literally you have to, number one, deal with an idiot, and number two, that at any moment you have no job security, who wants to come? I mean, you just think Sessions. Sessions was his man.
Right.
He fought hard to get Sessions in there.
Right.
Now, he's turned on Sessions. I mean,
Real
he's
quick.
tweeting out about him.
And it's really because he doesn't understand. He does not understand
Understand the
that
law.
legally Sessions had to recuse himself from this because he's part of the investigation. I mean, he was part and parcel of all of the things that were going on behind the scenes. So he had to recuse himself. So, I mean, it's just total ignorance of law, of history, of government, of just the basic norms that, we need, I mean, just the base that you need. you
Yeah,
know.
he doesn't. I mean, even with this Supreme Court nominee, when they were asking him yesterday, have you had any conversations about Mueller and investigation? And he really tried to treat him right, but
Dodge.
he did. He
totally
did.
has.
It was obvious.
So how can you effectively be a judge when it might come before you to talk about impeaching this man?
Right.
So you're going
He-
to
and-
hire the judge that's going to be in charge of impeaching you, and then expect him to be fair about it.
And he won't be.
My biggest hope is that treason is proven, and then that way all of these appointments and everything else can go back and be rescinded. Because I mean, if it's proven that he was if he's convicted of treason, then he is not the valid president of the United States. So his appointments then become invalid as well.
But will
and
they
then we
do
have
that?
to remove
will,
that.
will they do that?
I
Because
just don't think
at
they
that
will.
point, they're going to say, well, if we do that, it's going to make us look weak as a nation. It's going to make us look
We
like
are weak as a nation
Yeah,
right
but
now.
Nobody wants to admit it.
But exactly.
What treason? What would that be? That he did what? He did something against the United States.
conspired with
He
Russia.
conspired with Russia.
That you aided
Conspiracy.
and abetted an enemy. And we know that Russia is an enemy because even though we have not had a shooting war
I don't even think it
with
has
them,
to be an enemy. It has to be a foreign entity.
Foreign entity.
Yeah,
well,
foreign
it,
entity.
but
Doesn't
it,
that-
knowing
but
that-
it says enemy though.
But
so.
knowing that that Russia tried to, they did interfere in our
and that
elections.
is an act of
And he
war.
encouraged it.
He sure did.
He encouraged
He
it.
sure did.
So
Russia, if you're listening,
yeah.
I remember that. But he has become ever so much more paranoid. He's paranoid, and you could tell. I just saw a couple of bits of last night's speech, but when he just tried to say anonymous and couldn't say anonymous, and then the person. Now, the New York Times, they screened this person. They know who this person is.
Of course.
And they would not have printed that.
I look at how upset it made him. I think if it had no validity to it, he wouldn't be as upset as he is.
Right.
He's upset that the real information is getting out there. Not that somebody lied about him or somebody's portraying him as a certain way. It's
And
you
that's
know
why
what?
he said it's a matter of national security.
Because
and the New York
somebody
Times
is
should turn the
telling
person over. Yes.
My personal business, and
But was
I look
it-
at it as a truth.
The
But
New
was-
York Times doesn't have to turn a person.
No, they don't. And wasn't he just recently saying that if you don't know who they are, it was an argument he was making about they should rescind this law that allows people to what do they call it when you're a confidential informant. and
Yeah.
he wanted to say that was illegal.
Right.
I mean, it's just
But
a
he wants to
furtherance of
know
this-
who said it,
Yeah, yeah,
basically.
yeah. It's the same. It's the same argument.
But
And
did
the,
you
and the
say-
two parallel,
He
and the
doesn't know who to
parallel,
attack.
right? And the parallel is, he runs his, White House just as he runs his businesses, right? And so in Trump Inc., for example, he does the exact same thing. He fire people, he get rid of people if they don't just basically follow him and do what he say do. And so he's attempting to run the country on the same way he runs Trump Inc. And it's becoming a problem, a major
A
problem.
criminal enterprise.
Well,
Exactly.
and then he acts like he's king. I mean, he is all
Well, I
empowered.
think that's what he
But there are
believes.
three branches of government. But I just fought Congress also. I mean, the Republicans in Congress are
They're
ridiculous.
complacent with what he's doing. They're not
Well-
speaking out. The same way I equate to, when we get to talking about police brutality. If the good police don't speak out on the bad police, then they're just as guilty.
Exactly.
You have to call them
That's a
out
valid
for what
point.
they are.
And they are an equal branch of government. They have just as much power as the president. Okay,
Right.
so you have an executive, a legislative, and a judicial branch. They have equal power, but this weak Congress, is, and I think a lot of them may have a problem because so many of them took money from the NRA, and now we're finding out that the NRA was getting money from Russia. So they have to
Oh,
be.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's why the NRA has really been quiet here recently because they're investigating over $30 million that
They're
was
sitting back
that was
polishing their
given
rifles.
that was given to the NRA. So Dana Loesch and
Oh, yeah.
and LaPierre, they're both being real quiet right now because they don't want to put themselves out there because there are about to be a lot of issues.
Well, I want to get into the fact slowly before we go to another subject. Is Mueller, the Mueller investigation? I am really concerned. I want it to be done so we know. But they say he's very meticulous about what he does, and
I
I
want him
think
to take his time and get it right.
Oh yeah,
Right.
oh,
yeah, I do too.
And
Don't leave
I
no
love
stones
the
unturned.
fact that Trump is scared.
Oh yeah.
Trump, anything he can do to say that this is not valid, that it's not right, every moment he gets, he's trying to speak out against it. And I believe he doesn't want something to come out. Otherwise, I mean, when you look at other investigations, most times politicians say, hey, investigate.
Well, I think he thinks
I don't want the truth to come
Manafort. He doesn't want
I don't
Manafort to turn state's evidence because he's up there giving all those signals to Manafort, like he'll
I got your
pardon
back.
him. Yeah, I got your back. And then with McCain having passed away last week, and he only let the flag down at the White House for a half a day or something, then put the flag back up. That was really ridiculous. He talked
It
about
was insulting.
he was very insulting. But then for his daughter and son-in-law to show up at McCain's funeral.
And not get thrown out because I mean, seriously, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you're still representing the same person. You can leave too.
Totally agree.
And one other thing, in the speech last night that Trump gave, he said about Kim Jong-un.
Kim Jong-un.
Talking about he likes me. See that he says that a lot, like a kid.
He's narcissistic.
Yeah, he's very, and he knows that so many people don't like him. That really burns him up.
And Kim isn't speaking out on his behalf.
No, he's not.
Kim is laughing at him.
Nothing has
on.
happened with that deal. Oh, he was going to do this, and he's going to give up his nuclear, and he was going to do. Nothing has happened. When we talk about the wall, Mexico is going to build that wall as soon as I get in office. Mexico is not building the wall.
Yeah, I saw.
So
I'm sure you
it's
saw that
nothing that he
picture.
said that's coming into fruition.
Right.
What picture?
Except he was going to
there's
give his
a-
cronies tax break.
There's a picture of the previous president of Mexico and the current president of Mexico, both, with the middle finger extended. Like, okay, yeah, like we're gonna,
Okay, all
right.
right. Right. So this week there was a big splash, big news media because Nike put out they're celebrating their how many years?
30th.
30th anniversary, and they put the picture of Colin
Just do a
Kaepernick
campaign.
Yeah,
Kaepernick
30th
on-
anniversary of Just Do It.
of Just Do It.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Right.
because Michael Jordan initially
Michael
had
Jordan, Bo Jackson.
yeah, but Michael Jordan, I remember when those
Spike
Jordans.
Lee.
Do you all remember when those first Jordans came out? You should
Red,
remember.
yeah.
red, black, and white.
Yeah,
Money
definitely
Mike.
remember. Yes.
Yeah, people wanted those shoes. People all over.
So as we tie up the Trump thing,
Right.
I'm a little bit perturbed at the person who did that, because while we have this Nike campaign coming out that's saying that if you need to be willing to sacrifice everything for something that you believe in,
Right.
whoever wrote that article isn't willing to do and go to the same length that Colin Kaepernick went to in order to put out there, put my name to what I said. And
Well,
so Kaepernick is.
I guess I kind of feel two ways about that, because if they put out their name, they'll be fired
So
And
what-
persecuted.
and persecuted. But the other thing, if they stay in there, maybe they could pull one of those papers off his desk again, so he won't create
They're
something.
they're still working
because
for
the
us.
whole thing, they're saying that there's a resistance movement within the White House.
did you find it ironic that the only person that used this one phrase
Was the
lodestar,
Pence. It was
and it was
Pence.
and they went back and they showed him saying that again and again and
I
again,
saw that.
and then it's in the article too. So I mean,
Well, I don't know. Somebody could have just thrown that in
Sure,
the article.
sure.
I think
That's
that
not
in
a
the
normal
article,
word.
there may have been 2 or 3 writing styles in that article, too. They say that person may have been a military person, or that person may be a woman. I know how to write like someone else. What I'm saying is, if I know their philosophy, I can write just like them. I can write something slanted just like they write.
Gotcha.
But I don't think the person has to come through, because I believe the New York Times vetted this person, knows that this person really
Or-
worked for the White House.
or maybe there's more than one person that wrote that.
That's another
and
thing.
maybe they combined,
Right.
I said there were several
yeah,
different writing
yeah.
styles.
And so the resistance would lead you to believe that it's actually definitely more than one.
Let's
And
hope so.
Yeah.
a lot of people decided to burn their Nike shoes, burn their feet up.
In their house.
And oh,
In their
someone
garage.
btheir house?
Yeah.
Oh
One
yeah,
guy burned
somebody
his
burning
house
house
down.
down, trying to
No,
burn
you're
some
kidding.
shoes.
No,
Oh yeah.
no.
He sacrificed. He sacrificed it all. He just
He
did
made
it.
the ultimate.
Oh yeah.
But just because, see, my son called me, he said, Ma, with these conservatives, if it's something that they don't like, they're going to automatically label you unpatriotic. Automatically. So that's what's happened, because they stood behind Colin Kaepernick, saying he did sacrifice. People, okay, he got paid for the Nike ad. He got paid for all of this.
But
We
he's
know
giving away a lot of his money as
a
well.
lot of
Right.
his money.
A lot of his money, and he gave up his profession. I mean, nobody wants to leave when they tell you to. Everybody want to leave on their own terms. So he's still a free agent right now on the market. So he's still a viable player, but he's been blackballed from the NFL because of the position that he's taken. And Sean Hannity, who wanted to downplay his stance, he really did sacrifice everything. He didn't give up his life, but he sacrificed his profession, and for most people, that
His
is your
livelihood.
life. Exactly.
And if
And-
you look
and
back
it's-
at history, Muhammad Ali did the same thing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And at that time, it was frowned upon. But when now you look at history, he's looked at as a hero.
Exactly.
So
Valid point.
There are actually 2 different commercials out. So there's the one where you have Kaepernick, walking down the street. There's another one though that they have with John Carlos, Tommy Smith, Muhammad Ali,
Oh, I didn't
and they're
see that.
showing how all of these people, how much they sacrificed for what they believed in.
And you know what? And so one of the things I like to tell people is when I have this discussion, right? He's not the first.
No,
Right? When you go back to, what was it, the 72 or 68 Olympics?
68 in Mexico City.
Right. So Muhammad Ali, as Jerome mentioned, right? These are not the first athletes who laid it on the line in their beliefs.
And I come from an era where athletes stood up and made these pronouncements
Yeah.
about injustice and everything else.
It's
Kareem
funny,
Abdul-Jabbar is
right,
one
he
of them.
did. He did. But you know who used to talk revolutionary and then
Jim
became Jim Brown.
Yeah.
I just was so disappointed. I was so disappointed in him. It
He
seemed
was
like-
revolutionary for himself.
Yeah.
He wasn't,
that's-
and I don't want to discredit that. But I'm just saying, but Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, to name another, all these guys laid it on the line. And so now you fast forward to 2016, Colin Kaepernick takes a knee. He doesn't even do anything, that draws attention.
He
Right.
never even spoke out. They asked him about it. He
Exactly.
never spoke out on it. They came and asked him, and he answered their questions.
Exactly.
So-
do
he's
you
been persecuted.
Do you think he's filed that lawsuit, right?
Oh,
He's
yeah.
gonna prevail.
And I
I
believe
think
the
he's gonna
arbitrator just
win.
ruled. I believe the arbitrator ruled that he has
A valid
enough
case.
a valid case to go
Right,
to court.
right,
yes.
right,
That they
right.
conspired.
So they can just
Against
open
him.
up the checkbook, and it's a great time to do it because if you look at what quarterback salaries are right now,
Oh,
look at the boy that was Michigan State and went to
Minnesota.
Minnesota. Look,
Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins, guaranteed money.
Oh yeah.
Quarterbacks are getting, because football, they don't guarantee the contracts the way they do in baseball and basketball. Okay.
Right.
And so for him to get a fully guaranteed contract, that's really-
absolutely it's
and,
groundbreaking.
I mean, you want to tell me that Kaepernick isn't on the level of Cousins? Kaepernick played in the Super Bowl. Cousins hasn't,
Right.
he can watch it on TV like the rest of us. He ain't been there.
Right.
So
Right, right. But here's the thing. I like that commercial with the one hand football
linebacker,
player.
yeah.
They just had different people on there. And Serena Williams, it just bothered me so much that they drug tested her so many times. Here she's one of the greatest athletes in the world. And it's like,
She's black.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I
That
know.
sums it up.
And it just shows another inequality when it comes to us that people don't want to acknowledge. She didn't even know that it wasn't normal until they said that, okay, she's been tested this many times and the next closest person has only been tested this many times.
Right.
You don't even know that you're being mistreated or
Right, right.
treated inequitably.
Because
Oh, yeah.
Someone else
they're
points
doing
it
it
out.
behind closed doors.
Right.
I mean, it just adds to it.
because she has nothing to hide, she's just been,
Very dominant.
just going right along with it,
Because
You
she
wanna
didn't
test
know,
me?
right,
Test
right.
me. I mean, what's the big
Initially,
deal?
right,
When I don't
initially
have
she
anything
didn't
to
know,
hide.
Right.
And I find it. I mean, you look at the people talking about burning their Nikes and all of this stuff in an uproar, and I really can't understand it. So
They're
got
not burning their Jordans. They're going and getting those
ones you get at Walmart?
No, they're getting the discontinued
Yeah.
ones at the Nike outlet. And then
Yeah.
they're gonna burn
But-
those 1999.
I saw somebody burn their whole
They sit up
stash.
here and they say, well, okay, you're offending veterans and people that have worked in the military.
and the veteran said no.
Yeah, and
And they
it was a
continue to
veteran
say
that
no.
told him
To
instead
do
of
it.
sitting, you should kneel.
Right.
So he's trying to be as respectful as possible. Then they say, well,
It's
you're
conservative
going
veterans
against the
that have a
police
problem.
and this and that. And I find that to be very crazy in itself because, okay, so you look at what's the doctor up at Michigan State that got locked up?
Oh,
Dr.
Nasser.
Nassar.
Nasser.
So to say that he's a bad doctor or that he misused his power, nobody's going against that.
Indisputable.
No doctors are coming out saying, oh, no, if you talk against Nassar, you're talking against me as a doctor. No. He's making all of them look bad, so they're going against him as well.
Right.
Why is it that the police aren't doing the same thing? Well,
the
I'm not
bad
going to say
police.
the white police because they did put out something. They put out a letter to Nike. It was a National Police Association. And the Black Police Officers Association came up and said, no, they are not representing us. They wrote a letter to Nike saying, no, they are not representing all of us. They're speaking for themselves. We
Right.
support Colin Kaepernick and the things that he's doing. And,
Right.
he's going against those officers that make us all look bad, which is, I think, what all of them should be doing.
Fundamentally, the thing that I have a problem with is no one in any conversation I'm sure, because it's happened to me, any conversation you ever had with any conservative or anybody that's on the right that's talking about the Colin Kaepernick issue, no one wants to address the reason why he's kneeling.
Yeah.
They'll never address it.
Right.
They'll just say, well, he shouldn't be protesting at this particular time. He should do it this way. I say, so when should he protest? Why don't y'all get together and determine when he should and let him know when and how he should protest?
And isn't that the ultimate privilege telling us how to protest?
Yeah.
And that's my point. But they never, ever want to address the issue or the reason why he's taking a
And a
knee.
lady told me the other day, she said, I don't believe the statistics in regards to racism and inequalities. And I said, statistics? What do you mean statistics? I said, I've been pulled over by the police for no reason. I've been targeted. I've been treated unfairly in stores and things of that sort. I've never reported it to anyone. So how does that fall into the statistics?
Right.
I don't understand it. It's our daily activity. It happens to us on a daily, on daily,
On a daily basis.
on a daily basis.
You know, in America,
do we report that to?
racism is so American that when
That's apple pie and
when
baseball.
when you protest against racism, they actually believe you're protesting against
apple
America.
pie and baseball.
I mean, that's how insane
and the
all
flag.
of this is.
Right. I
mean,
agree.
But they listen to Donald Trump because he says, our country. This is our country. Our country.
We
I don't
hear
think
you.
he's Native American.
We hear you.
I
know
know
exactly what you're
I know,
saying.
but there are so many dog whistles out there, and I just believe. Now CBS
Let's
says
not monkey this up.
CBS said that. Oh God, yeah.
yeah.
CBS had the nerve to say that they thought that this was going to go against Nike, but from what I heard, there was a line almost around the block at the Nike store downtown
Oh, yeah.
yesterday.
Nike
It
is
won't go
very
against
smart
Nike.
with their marketing. They know who their consumers are. Their consumers are usually under 35. And you look at them, they're a global country. A global company. They're not just here in America.
Right. Yeah.
You
Nike
have a
will
lot of
never lose on this
Yeah,
street.
They will never
Straight
lose.
No.
Let me tell you, there were numerous marketing meetings sitting down and discussing every
Oh, I'm sure.
single aspect of this campaign.
They got
and they knew
$43
exactly what they were
million
doing.
40
worth
43.
of free
Free
media
advertising.
and advertising
Right.
out of this. Everybody's talking about it.
Right.
Ford has jumped on the bandwagon.
Did they?
Yes.
But you don't see nobody burning their
Levi's.
Ford, right?
Levi's.
And both of them are two big sponsors for the NFL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mrs. Ford
Yeah.
Yeah.
said, we believe our players should have the right to protest, and we're going to support them.
What about
And freedom of
Jerry?
speech.
What's his name in Dallas? Jerry.
Oh, well, he's
Yeah.
a big-time
Jones.
conservative.
I mean, what's
That's
the
Trump's
quarterback's
boy.
name?
When did he kneel with them? Didn't he kneel
Dak
with them?
Prescott.
Yeah,
But
he
it wasn't
kneeled with
during the
them one day.
national anthem.
No,
No.
right before
Some
the
bull
anthem.
crap.
Yeah,
It was publicity
It was.
stuff.
Said none of
He
his
wanted-
players are
and-
going to kneel.
You know what?
Yeah.
But here's the
He
thing
gonna
that
fire
really
him.
here's the thing that really bothers me is that it's a league that is 60-70% African American. Why can't these players come together and stand behind? I mean, because it's him today, it's Kaepernick today. It could be you tomorrow.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And they need to come together and just everybody come together and take a knee. Now you're going to suspend the whole league.
Because everybody
I'd like to
isn't
see what
prepared.
that-
Everybody isn't prepared for that personal sacrifice of losing that income and so on.
It
So
won't happen if they stick
I
together.
agree,
It
but
won't
mentally
happen.
speaking, a person doesn't know what's going to happen to him if he, puts it out there. And I say, and I agree with you because I say it all the time. Back in 1955, when Birmingham, Alabama had the bus boycott, right? Not one black person rode a bus
Right.
for over a year. I
Right.
try to get people to stop going to the store where they mistreat your kids,
Right.
where they don't have any
That
lights
one
on.
across the street from the station.
Right, where they didn't have any lights on, where it was cold in the winter because they didn't have heat, and they talked to your kids any kind of way. And you couldn't stop them from going there because they didn't want to make that personal sacrifice of walking another block in another direction to a different store.
I'm getting ready to put this corned beef place, they sell more than corned beef, on blast because I walked in there, I had this urge for a corned beef sandwich because in the play that we talk about, that I'm directing, they talk about corned beef sandwiches. I said, I gotta have one today.
Subliminally.
I went in there and the floor, my feet were sticking to the floor. And I said, the floor is, my feet are sticking to the floor. He said, oh, something must have spilled over there. I looked around at the whole floor. It was dirty. And because more African Americans go to that store, they don't even bother to clean the floor. So I'm
So
getting
we
ready.
had to stop going there.
Yeah, well, I'm never going.
I'd take you to a fantastic place to get a corned beef
Oh,
sandwich.
well, I know Lou's.
No.
What?
No. Shout out to Lou's, but I'd take you to a
Where?
wonderful place. It's called Steve's Deli,
Steve's
yeah,
Deli.
yeah.
Which one? Where is that?
Orchard Lake and Maple.
Oh, wait a minute. I went to Esquire down the street.
Oh, okay.
Steve's Deli is good. I'm over there sometime
Oh, yeah.
Okay, y'all making me hungry. Let's get
with
back
grilled
on.
rye.
Corned beef. Oh, yeah.
Oh
Oh,
man.
yeah.
Listen to how he said,
oh,
oh
yeah.
yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Got
I'm
his Barry White to show you right. That's a
But I
sandwich.
know of people who went out and bought new Nikes to show
great
you right.
sandwich.
Right. Oh, it was. I'm gonna have to do that. Make a trip. Okay, but
Pastrami and corned beef mix
pastrami and corned beef mix.
with Swiss and coleslaw.
I think he had an affair with the sandwich. I think he had an affair with the sandwich.
Wow.
Hello, boy. On the hand-cut grill rye.
There was an article that said NBC poll shows majority of Americans believe that the NFL police brutality protest isn't appropriate. I don't know who they never.
Who'd they
I never
poll?
get asked.
Ask me.
I
Who'd
never.
they poll?
But
Right.
nobody. Wait a minute. The sacrifice. Who's gonna sacrifice watching the Lions? Wait a minute. First and foremost, why couldn't the Lions get Colin Kaepernick? And I mean, come on.
Well,
We
you
got-
know,
we
Stafford.
got
Stafford
Matt
is a
Stafford.
savior. So
Yeah, Matt
you know,
Stafford.
that
He ain't
ain't
gonna
gonna
Really?
happen. Yeah.
I don't know what's wrong with the Lions.
And if the owners got together and said that they weren't hiring him, nobody's going to hire him.
OL.
What is that?
Offensive line.
There you go.
Yep.
I mean, everybody thought that Matt Patricia was the
Every
second
team,
coming.
He needs an OL, though.
Oh.
They look horrible in the preseason.
Every team needs an
When
offensive
the Browns
line.
beat you, the Browns beat you.
And
Wait.
bad.
Did
Wait,
they play?
I love
did
it.
they play the other night? Did the Lions play?
The first NFL game was last night,
Right.
but they had a preseason game last Thursday or Friday.
What happened last night?
The Eagles played Atlanta.
The
I was at
Eagles
a
beat
restaurant. It was on, but I
Did
don't
the
know who
Lions
won.
play?
No,
No, the
they
Lions
play
is
Monday
playing
night.
Monday
Monday
night
night.
football.
New
First
York
game of the
Jets.
season.
First game Monday
we'll
night.
really be on blast, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I just say, you know,
Thrill of victory.
you talk about Mrs. Ford. Well, why didn't Mrs. Ford say, why don't you try giving Kaepernick?
Well, because they
Salary
got
cap.
Matt Stafford. Yeah, Matt Stafford. They done gave him all that bread. They gonna utilize. They gonna wear
He's
him
$100
down to
million
the hooks.
quarterback. So they-
Is he
Yeah.
Yeah, they
He
gonna wear
was
him
the
down.
highest paid
Yeah,
until
last
this
year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
more than Tom Brady?
Yes.
Everybody makes
Come
more
on.
than Tom.
Yeah.
Tom makes more in endorsements. He
Yeah.
gets that endorsement, and his wife is rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's sacrificing for the team per se.
Really?
But he makes all that endorsement money.
Oh, really? Really?
Because in football, it's like three things you got to have. You got to have a quarterback. You got to have somebody that's going to protect that quarterback, as you said, the O-line. And then on the other side, you got to have somebody that's going to get the other team's quarterback. And then that's it. I mean, the rest of it is just, kind of
got to
fancy.
have a
But if you got
O-line.
those three things,
Okay,
That's the
well,
game.
I brought it up because are any of you going to sacrifice watching the Lions games?
No, I'll be working there Monday.
Yeah, that excuse, that job. Oh, it's just a job.
I
Okay.
haven't been watching.
I
I haven't
haven't
been watching
watched.
football.
I haven't
I
watched.
did go to a couple games last year. I wouldn't pay for it. I wouldn't buy anything while I was there. They were free tickets. I went and I wore my shirt. I did not stand for the anthem. I had a Colin Kaepernick
As
shirt.
the majority, the majority does it. So that's why that's even, more confusing to me. Why is everybody so upset about Colin Kaepernick kneeling, but you're not upset about the guy in the beer line or the guy buying hot
Still
dogs?
selling
Everybody,
liquor,
nobody
beer.
pays attention to the national
they,
anthem.
Nothing else
they don't
stops.
stop. They don't stop that during the national anthem. One of
Actually,
the
that's
things
the best time to go get something.
Exactly.
last year, as you know, Colin Kaepernick is my fraternity brother, and we marched from the Kappa House, to the stadium on opening day.
I remember.
And as we're going down the street, and we're just letting people know we support Kaepernick, right? There were actually black people tailgating, and they were screaming at us, and I'm looking at them like, "Hey man, what side of this are you on?"
Conservative side.
No,
Well,
they ain't look like no
No,
conservatives
I
to me,
think,
man. It
well,
was-
how does
they
a
was
conservative
with
look?
the-
You
with the
never
flow.
know.
They didn't offer you a rib?
Well, it's just the fact that, you trying to get in our heads. You're trying to get in our heads.
stop our football.
Listen, speaking of football, U of M.
Oh,
Oh my gosh, they lost to Notre Dame.
yes, they did.
I believe that Harbaugh. I know they're not going to fire him because they'd have to pay him too much money.
'Cause he got
But
lifetime
this is
contract.
his team now. This is not the team he inherited. This is a lot of his team. And Braylon Edwards, who is a commentator, a former U of M.
Was a commentator.
I mean, well,
He still is. He's just
he's
unemployed at the moment.
He's suspended.
I thought he was suspended.
Yeah, suspended
So he's still employed.
indefinitely.
Anyway, he said that the team was trash. Is that why he got suspended?
Well,
Yeah.
and he actually spoke out against a couple players that were on the team.
He
Yeah.
violated their social media. He violated BTN social media policy.
Yeah. And the thing is, and I mean, I've always had a problem with this, is when, they take these amateur athletes and they treat them like professional athletes and they put them on blast like that. I just think that's wrong.
I do too.
These are young men trying to get through college, okay?
They're
and,
learning.
and if they're
Trying to learn.
right, and the stresses that are put upon them, are not like any other students that are on the campus. Okay, so they have to make training table, they have to make study table, they got to do all these things, and then to be criticized, for things like that.
Being criticized in the manner which they were criticized is wrong.
By name.
We applaud them with the same vigor as professionals when they winning and they doing good. So they have to have some type of onus.
We don't applaud them with the money.
That's true.
get hand
but I'm
claps.
just talking about when I'm at home
don't
eating
get the
popcorn
dollars.
watching the
Thank
game. I do a
Thank
few
you.
hoorahs. I agree with you on that. But I'm just saying, so Braylon Edwards, and I can see his frustration being a past member, alumni. That's a conversation he should have had in private with those teams, because you got to believe those conversations do happen, right? But to put him on blast the way he did and call him out by name, extremely wrong.
My son, when I was talking to him about it, he said that people don't like Braylon Edwards anyway.
Yeah,
Some of them
He
don't.
said a lot of people don't like him. But
He has been quite cocky in the past.
right.
yeah, and my thing is, Ryan, what he did, I told you on the days of the game, they put everybody in the family, my little grandkids, everybody puts on Michigan gear. My daughter-in-law, my son, everyone, and
That's
he had
too
a big
bad.
old party. I mean, they all put on Michigan gear.
Your son went to Dayton.
Yeah, but still, he's from Michigan. I mean, when Dayton plays, he puts his Dayton flag out.
Oh, okay,
But my
okay.
grandson put that big Michigan flag out, and he did all this, cooked outside, invited people over for that terrible, terrible game.
Well, they
child
were
abuse.
competitive. I will say that they had that one bad play that seemed to turn the momentum when they threw the Notre Dame threw the touchdown and the guy took the
Just,
ball out of the defensive back's
Yeah,
hand.
that was,
Right.
That really turned things. But
and I believe they just got out coached.
yeah, they did get out coached. They didn't have their number one receiver. He's still out injured. They do have their new quarterback.
What do you think of him?
The new quarterback.
He's supposed to be great.
They say he's really good. I like the guy that came in for him.
That's what
the
people.
backup.
That's
Right.
what people
He
say.
threw that ball. He
That's
he
right.
was good. It was very accurate. He didn't do a lot of running, but he put that ball where it needed to be, and he was moving the chains.
Right.
And they took him right back out. They've invested. Shea Patterson was like one of the number one quarterbacks coming out when he came out of high school. The guy behind him actually was as well. This is the first year that actually Harbaugh has quarterback. He was a quarterback coach. That's his thing, quarterbacks. This is the first year he's had a quarterback that he wanted to actually play. So
Right.
I guess
we'll
I'm
see.
just surprised that this is a SEC quarterback that comes and plays at the
Big
level he
Ten.
played at. I expected him to play a whole lot better than he did. Coming from the
But-
SEC
Right.
because
Well,
that's
would you
supposed
bel-
to be the power.
Would you believe Braylon Edwards when he said that the team is predictable?
yeah, and
Yeah.
I'll go back to what you said before. The offensive line, they didn't keep them out of there. He didn't have a lot of time.
Right.
That's true.
He didn't have a lot of time.
I
he
mean,
was getting hit.
And Big Ten football has always been about smash mouth. I'm gonna put 6 guys down front, and you can put down whoever you gonna want, and we're gonna march down the field. I mean, when you go back to the Bo Schembechler days, right? That was it. Smash mouth football. I believe Michigan has lost that over the past 3 or
Go
4
out
years,
tough you. That's what
right?
it was.
You're right, but I believe we lost that. We
Well-
tried to get a lot flashier,
Yeah.
so we brought down the size to get speed and try these new
And then,
things.
and if you remember, Harbaugh came from the West Coast, so he's at Stanford. And, you know, out west, it's about airing it out. So it's not
Right.
really that same style because, you know, at Michigan, when he was quarterback at Michigan, they didn't play that style of ball.
Right.
So, you know, I don't know that, you know, necessarily he's adjusted to the fact that, you know, the Big Ten is not going to be this air it out kind of league.
Right.
Okay?
I think it's going to work. He has good receivers. He has top receivers now. One is still injured. He has a pretty decent running back. I think they need to work on that offensive line. I think their defense is not as good as it was or it has been. I will give Harbaugh some credit in regards to his strength of schedule. He's not backing away from anybody.
Of course.
He didn't.
Right.
He didn't plan that first game to be a
Doesn't
cupcake
somebody
game.
call him, I think Michelle told me khaki pants or something?
Oh yeah, because he's wearing them khakis on.
Oh yeah, old school.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shannon's hilarious.
they call him khaki pants. Well, last week was Aretha Franklin's funeral. It was a long funeral, to say the least.
Very long.
Yeah, it was very long.
Yeah.
It 8 hours. I mean, with the burial and everything.
3 days.
They
Oh.
were all. I was the cemetery is down the street from my house, and they had both sides of Woodward packed, the island in the middle.
Right.
People were all out on 7 Mile watching the procession, on Livernois, on 8 Mile. And this was.
It was a good time to be at home, wasn't it?
8
Yeah.
o'clock, 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah,
Good
You
time to
still
be at
couldn't
home.
get out.
yeah.
No.
I had the best seat in the house, television.
Right.
You know, that
Good
was
time
the
to be at home.
best seat, you know, and I know a lot of people who were there. And one of my friends, she actually was in one of the choirs, and that made for a very long day, and people complained about a lot of things, you know. Well, the funeral was what it was, you know, and a lot of people did not like the eulogy that was preached by Jasper Edwards.
Jasper Williams.
Williams, excuse me, I'm still on Braylon, where he said that a black woman or a woman cannot raise a black young man, which I think all of us disagree with, do we? I mean, sometimes you have no choice.
Of course. You know what? I totally agree. And the biggest part of that about his overall eulogy was not the time or place. And I
Right.
know a lot of people are up in arms about why didn't nobody else stand up and say something. And I believe it was because it wasn't the time or place. Now, if they don't chastise him afterwards, you know, we have to remember, even though she was the queen of soul, this was a human being. This was a woman who had a family that loved her, and her family was sitting there.
And they spoke
so-
out against it as well.
Exactly. And so we're going to get through this funeral process, but Jasper, afterwards, we're going to have a collective conversation with you, my brother, because that was not the time to air whatever was on his mind. That
He
wasn't
never
the time
even really
for it.
spoke about Aretha
Aretha
Franklin.
Exactly.
that much.
He didn't. They say he was chosen because he had eulogized her father as
And
well as
said
her
that
brother.
she chose him. She chose him.
Well,
She didn't choose
she
that
didn't choose
topic.
him.
Oh,
She didn't choose him. They allowed him to do it because he had eulogized
Right.
the father and the brother. It wasn't that they had a long-standing relationship or anything. I don't even know that he knew her that well, which might be why he did not speak, on her. He spoke on what he wanted to speak on. He didn't speak to comfort the family. He didn't speak to comfort anybody. He spoke on what he wanted to speak on.
Right.
but even if you didn't know her that well, knowing about her, her life can serve as a lesson to many. You
And
know,
I looked at an article afterwards, and he tried to explain what he was saying.
yeah,
And I look at the message and I say, well, okay, I understand what he was trying to do. It was not the time or the place. And I don't think he delivered the message that he was trying to in the correct manner either.
I mean, that was more suited to a million-man march or some congregation of men where you're challenging men to stand up, okay?
Right.
But to denigrate the role that women play in the raising of black children and black boys. I mean, that was offensive to
At
me.
her funeral.
At her
It-
funeral,
it-
who was a single mother.
Right. It was
Exactly.
offensive to me in so many ways because my mother raised me. And I think she did an excellent job of raising a black man.
Yeah.
Everything about me, the way I am right now, my coaching, my mentoring, that I'm a father, that I've been married for 33 years, it's because of how I was raised by a black woman. Okay.
Exactly.
And to have a black man in the house isn't always the answer because he may not be the right figure to be in the house with the child. Okay. So, I mean, that was offensive to me in so many ways. And I mean, all I could think about was how this was just a cold slap in the face to my mother and so many other black women who have raised boys into men. It's not that you can't do it. Okay, you can do it, and then you also
shouldn't have to do it.
Yeah,
And
you
I think
shouldn't
that's
have
what
to
he was-
do it.
That's what he was trying to get to, and it came out the wrong way. He was trying to say that men need to step up.
Yeah.
These women shouldn't have to raise their children, and that, a woman can't raise a man to be a man. It takes a man
What
to.
is that? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Well,
What does that mean?
I look at it like this. Because I've heard my father say it, and I've asked him. I'm like, so what about all of the single mother? He said, is there some things that you need a man there, or a man should be there to teach his son.
Right.
He said a woman shouldn't have to teach a son how to do the things that a man should be doing. And when I hear that,
Right.
I don't take it as a woman can't do it. It's the fact that a woman shouldn't have to do it.
Exactly.
If you have a child,
Well, sometimes divorce happens.
Right.
that
and
doesn't
that's-
mean that
and
you're
that's
not in your
true.
child's
Right,
life.
right.
And that's true because I often say that, Brenda, when I have discussion with people, and I always say women don't have no business raising no man kids, right? And a lot of them get offended. But I'm speaking from the heart. She shouldn't have to do it by herself. And like Jerome said, there's some things that, yes, you can raise that child, but there's some things you can't teach him that a man, he going to learn it from a man or his daddy.
Right.
You
Well,
dig?
well, in my case, me and their dad got a divorce, and he was still in his life, but the majority of the time it was me, and I was the one, even as tall as that kid is, I'd still kind of chase him around to whoop him. I just did, because certain things you just cannot do. And I remember when he said to me after he got married and they bought their first condo, he said, now, Mom, I'm paying the house note and the this, that, and the other thing. Now, that's what I'm supposed to do, right? And I said, yeah, yeah. I mean, you all have your own plan, but
even children respond different. I look
Right.
at how my daughter responds to my wife as opposed to how she responds to me. My wife, she talks. Logan, do this. Da, da, da. Didn't I tell you something? Logan, with me, Logan, what did Daddy say?
Yeah.
And
Well,
then I'll count. I'm
Right.
not going to sit there and go back and
Argue
forth with
back
you.
and forth.
We're going to get
Right.
it done. And, she's 3 years old, and she knows the different dynamics. She knows that she can get away with a little bit more with Mama, because Mama's going to, get upset, and she has to work her way up to that point. Where Daddy, I'm talking calm every time, so she doesn't know how long she has before
Before
You know,
get hot
and-
for
has
it.
to do something.
Before get hot
in,
for
in,
it, yeah.
the, in the grand design, God knew exactly what he was doing when he had a male and a female to raise children, because there are things that children
But
learn
sometimes
from
it's
their
not
mothers and
possible.
from their fathers.
No, no,
no,
and
I
that's
hear what you're
right,
saying.
and that's true.
And in my life, I wish my father was there for me. There were so many things that I needed to know, and I needed him to be there for me, and he was not there for me. Okay, so I had to learn on my own. I spent most of my life as a kid bumping my head all the time. If I had somebody there that could steer me through some of these things, stand up for me sometime, okay? I didn't have that. But at the same time, it made me who I am. So, there's a give and take. But there's, in my house, my boys know clearly, that there are things that they get from their mother. There are things that they get from me.
true.
And
Right.
that's in the grand design that, we're different. We are different. Okay, we view things differently.
Mm-hmm.
You know, men typically have a more aggressive approach. You know, thank God my wife is there to, like, you know, tone
Balance
me
it
down.
out.
Yeah,
Right.
tone me down
And,
sometimes.
right. And in plainer perspective, right? You remember in Roots when Kunta Kinte turned 14 and then they had to go out and get their man license?
Right,
Right? They
right.
had to go out, they had to get the circumcised and stuff. Now, what happened if Lil Momutu daddy wasn't there? Right? Is you going to go out and teach him how to hunt lions? Right?
Well,
That's
you
not your
never-
responsibility. Yours was to gather all the grapes, right?
Or Boys in the Hood with Furious.
Exactly.
You know, it came a point where she said, "Hey,
I watched it the other night.
I need you to raise your son. Now I need him to stay with you.
But
But there's certain things I
sometimes-
can't teach him."
But sometimes it's just not possible. Sometimes you may have a parent, the other parent may want to be the child's friend more so than,
True.
you know, they may want to be that friend, and so you're the big bad wolf all the time.
Well,
But there were certain things, I remember when Ryan was in the dorm, one of his friends said, "Man, what the hell?" You know, he said, "Don't be saying that." He said, "But it's just hell." He said, "That's my, hey, in my house,
that's
my
what you
mother
about to
did."
get, the
Right. We have a quick phone call because we only have a minute left. Good morning.
Good morning, Queen. And good morning to the guests, you gentlemen.
Morning.
You know, Queen, I may say something that may hurt some of our feelings, but our perception of man may be a little different than how God sees what a man looks like or what a man acts like or how a man works about. And I think that's the biggest problem with us as black men, that we fail to realize, understand, maybe we're not the man that God, because only God can make a man. And so we struggle at this thing that we call manhood. And we learn as we go along. Every day we learn something different. And so God has to intervene, you know, in our affairs. And so when you think about, there's a story in the Bible about the children of Israel.
We only have 30 more seconds.
Okay, the children of Israel, they wasn't children. They were men, women, and children. But they didn't have the mindset of what a man was. And they depended on a total race of people to actually take care of them and provide for them as if the people were God. Think about that. Think about Hagar, who was put out by Abraham in the wilderness with her child.
Right.
Abraham
right.
had to turn to who? God.
God. Right. Thank
Have a
you.
blessed day. Love you guys.
Have a
Love
good
you.
weekend.
Okay. And he has a point. A lot of times you have to learn how to be a father. And my
Of course.
father wasn't around a lot. And my son, my brother ended up being a great father because he took the things my father didn't do and he did them. And so basically that's it. And it's 11 o'clock already. Okay, we got to go, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Good weekend.
Yep.
Yeah, have a great weekend. Have fun. Good sleeping weather.